William Powell was born in Pittsburgh in 1892 as the only child of Nettie Manila and Horatio Warren Powell, who was an accountant. In 1907, the Powells moved to Kansas City, Missouri, where he graduated from high school and decided to embark on a profession of law. He did not last and instead moved to New York City to attend the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, where he played on the Broadway stage and was recognized for his acting. He began his Hollywood career in 1922 and played in silent films for years. He is recognizable as an evil henchman of Professor Moriarty in a production of Sherlock Holmes with John Barrymore. He also performed as Francis I in When Knighthood Was in Flower, which was a Marion Davies vehicle and considered the most expensive film ever produced at the time in 1922. He was under contract to Paramount throughout most of the 1920s, and he left Paramount to sign with Warner Brothers. In 1929, Powell played the detective role in the Canary murder case alongside Louise Brooks, who remembered him being bookish and a gentleman. This marked a change in Powell's career. He had a very nice voice and was able to successfully transition to talkies. Carole Lombard entered William Powell's world as they were both working for Paramount Pictures in the early 1930s. They made 2 films together, Man of the World and Ladies' Man, and were very taken with each other. Powell was 16 years older than Lombard and had already been married, divorcing his first wife, Eileen, in 1930 after 15 years of marriage. Lombard found Powell's sophistication attractive, and the two married. Lombard and Powell married in 1931 after 8 months of dating. He showered her in gardenias, which was a tradition of his, and we start to see mention of the sapphire ring in various tabloids from the time. They took a cruise for their honeymoon, I believe, to Europe. Lombard's 152-carat star sapphire ring was known to be famous throughout Hollywood. Powell was notoriously tight-fisted, however, and so today the belief exists that the star sapphire was costume jewelry. Real or not, Lombard was pictured in films and photographs with the star sapphire ring and a matching brooch. Lombard and Powell enjoyed each other's company immensely, despite Lombard's penchant for cursing excessively. The two bought a Spanish villa in Los Angeles. Located in the Whitley Heights neighborhood, in 1930, this neighborhood was more rural than urban, and pictures of Carole show her looking out at a great expanse in the windows behind her. Photographs from 1931 show the couple engaged in yard work and carrying large rocks, as well as holding costume balls and other parties in their enchanting home. While the couple had an active social life, Powell was also very fond of books, and photographs from their home show the sheer volume of books he had. The marriage came to an end in 1933. With Carole receiving $20,000 from Powell, land, but no alimony. While Lombard said at the time that the separation was amicable, she later admitted that the two could not get along and had stark differences in intellect and entertainment. Louise Brooks, in her letters, said that Lombard preferred orgies, but Lombard's biographers have not been able to confirm this. Pictured is the Powell's Spanish villa home currently and what's left of the pool. By 1935, Powell was working at MGM and had developed a crush on his co-star, Jean Harlow, when he was filming the film Reckless with her in 1935. Harlow was born on March 3, 1911 in Kansas City, Missouri. Powell also spent time in Missouri attending the University of Kansas for 1 year before moving to New York City. Harlow and Powell were engaged for 2 or 3 years depending on who you ask. Powell, however, was not as committed to Harlow as she was to him. Powell was nervous about the 19-year age gap between them, as well as Harlow's 2 previous marriages, her last to Paul Byrne, who died very mysteriously in 1932. Harlow biographers have found that while Harlow was in hospital, Powell was called and he refused to see her until he knew the situation was dire. With the press swirling with news of Powell and Harlow's secret engagement, Lombard can be pictured wearing her sapphire set, for example here in Love Before Breakfast in 1936. What's going on here? How can the same star sapphire ring be in 2 places at once? Maybe Powell bought another gem. Maybe Powell asked for the engagement ring back and left Lombard the brooch. It is not entirely clear what happened, and there are no records to indicate that the star sapphire was sold. The brooch certainly makes far more appearances than the ring, including in the film Fools for Scandal in 1938. At the time, it was accepted practice for actresses to wear their personal jewelry on film sets. But Harlow wasn't exactly hiding her ring either. Up until her death, pictures of her wearing the star sapphire ring were published. Louise Brooks, recalling seeing Powell and Harlow interact at a party years later when writing letters, said that their relationship seemed fake. But in looking at photographs of them together, it's clear that they loved or at least cared for each other very much. This is partly why Jean Harlow's death at age 26 in 1937 was so shocking. Dying from kidney failure and unknown causes, perhaps due to the toxic hair dye that she wore. Harlow's death was unexpected, and Powell had to be physically carried by Harlow's mother at her funeral. Powell paid for the $25,000 grave at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, supposedly by request from Harlow's mother. Lombard also attended the funeral. This was not surprising. It was Hollywood, which is a small segment of our populace, and, as Ginger Rogers recalled later in her memoir, Carole Lombard was known as the woman who could do no wrong. After Harlow's sudden death, Powell took a cruise to Europe, but returned to lay flowers at Harlow's grave with Harlow's mother. Powell took Harlow's death extremely hard and reserved the grave next to hers for his own death. He suffered from bouts with cancer for which he would travel to Europe, and it is mentioned that the ring he gave Harlow had little diamonds around it, even as late as 1937. Powell also bought the grave next to Harlow's for himself, but did not use it because he married another woman. Powell would go on to marry Diana Lewis in 1940, who he remained married to until his death in 1984. Powell and Lombard remained close friends and are pictured dancing here in 1940. They legitimately loved one another, and I believe their connection was genuine. However, the mystery of the star sapphires persists. Was Harlow buried with her star sapphire? Some Harlow biographers think so. Was Carole buried with hers? That we're not so certain about. But one thing is certain is that Powell loved the women in his life very deeply, and he left a mark on Hollywood both with his personal life and his professional life.